Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're jumping into one of the most dramatic transformations you can find anywhere. How a huge group of recently freed slaves, totally lost in the desert, become an actual nation, bound together by a sacred promise. And our roadmap for this whole journey, it's right there in the book of Exodus, chapters 16 through 20. I mean, really think about it. That's the core question here. How do you take this disorganized, wandering crowd and turn them into a unified people with a real identity and a purpose? Well, the answer unfolds through a series of really intense trials and some pretty mind-blowing divine encounters. And we're going to break it all down one chapter at a time. So, here's how we're going to follow their path. We'll start with a pretty desperate test of hunger, then move to a crisis of thirst and their very first battle. After that, we'll see some critical leadership advice from a source you might not expect, witness their arrival at the legendary Mount Sinai, and finally, we'll hear the actual words that would become their national constitution. Okay, let's dive right in. Chapter 16. The Israelites are fresh out of Egypt and they hit their first major roadblock in the wilderness. And it's not some enemy army or a scary monster, it's their own empty stomachs. Wow, their reaction is just raw and immediate. They completely turn on Moses and Aaron, and they start talking about how great slavery was back in Egypt, where they at least had pots of meat and all the bread they could eat. You can just feel the panic in these words. They are 100% convinced that this whole journey to freedom thing is just a trick to kill them all. So God responds to their complaint by providing for them. In the evening, quails show up for meat. And in the morning, the ground is covered with this fine, flaky stuff they call manna. But here's the thing. This miraculous bread from heaven comes with a very specific set of rules, and it's really a test. You only gather what you need for the day. If you try to hoard it, it rots and gets disgusting. Then, on the sixth day, you gather double, because on the seventh day, the Sabbath, nothing's going to appear. So you see, the crucial point here isn't just about the food. It's a foundational lesson in trust, and it introduces this divine rhythm into their lives. It forces them to rely on God every single day for their needs, which is a massive concept. It also formally introduces the Sabbath, this weekly cycle of work and rest, and weaves it right into the fabric of their survival. Okay, so their hunger is taken care of, and the people travel on. But, one crisis is immediately replaced by another one that's just as desperate. This time, there's no water. And seriously, this complaint is almost a carbon copy of the last one. You just swap out hunger for thirst. The people get so angry that they're about to start throwing rocks at Moses. And they even challenge God directly, asking, "So, is the Lord with us or not?" God tells Moses to strike a rock and water gushes out for everyone. But just as that crisis ends, another one begins. They're attacked by the Amalekites. And the way this battle plays out is this brilliant illustration of the link between the physical and the spiritual. While Joshua is down on the ground leading the army, Moses is up on a hill with the rod of God. As long as his hands are raised, Israel wins. But the second his arms get tired and drop, Amalek starts winning. What this chapter really shows us is that provision and protection both come from God. But, and this is a big but, it also shows that human partnership is key. Just like God uses Moses' staff to bring water, he uses his raised arms to win the battle. And get this, when Moses gets tired, his friends Aaron and Hur literally come and hold his arms up for him until the sun sets. It's just this powerful picture of how even the greatest leaders can't do it alone. They have to rely on the support of their community. All right, so the people have food and water, and they're protected from their enemies. The next challenge they face is internal. How in the world do you govern and handle disputes for a population of millions? The problem is organizational, and the solution comes from a really surprising place. Jethro, who's not only Moses' father-in-law but also a priest of Midian, shows up for a visit. He sees Moses sitting from morning till night, personally judging every single little argument. And Jethro's reaction is immediate and blunt. He says, "The thing that thou doest is not good." He warns Moses straight up that he's on the path to total burnout. And what Jethro proposes is basically ancient management consulting. It's a brilliant shift from a leadership bottleneck to an effective, scalable system of justice. His advice is just pure, practical wisdom. Find capable, trustworthy people who respect God and hate corruption, and make them judges. Let them handle the small stuff and only bring the really tough cases to you, Moses. The huge takeaway here is that even divine leadership needs a practical structure to actually work long-term. And Moses listens. He implements the whole system. It's a powerful lesson that feels incredibly modern. I mean, the principles of delegation and empowerment are the bedrock of any healthy organization today. So, everything we've seen so far, the manna, the water from the rock, the battle, the new legal system, it's all been building to this. 3 months after leaving Egypt, the Israelites arrive at the foot of Mount Sinai. They've been fed, watered, defended, and organized. Now, they are finally ready for their defining moment. Right here, God calls Moses up the mountain and makes a formal offer. This is the proposal for a covenant, a sacred agreement. He reminds them how he carried them on eagle's wings out of Egypt. And then comes the deal. If you obey me and keep my covenant, then you will be my treasured possession above all other nations, a kingdom of priests, a holy nation. And now to prepare for this encounter, you can't just stroll up. The people have to go through a 3-day process of consecration. Moses sets up a boundary around the mountain that no one, person or animal, can cross, or they'll die. They have to wash their clothes. This isn't just about being physically clean, it's a symbolic act to impress upon them the sheer holiness and terrifying power of the God they're about to meet. This is the moment that marks their transition. When Moses brings God's offer back to the people, they all respond together with one voice. All that the Lord had spoken, we will do. That's their formal acceptance. They're no longer just a group of people God rescued. They are now a people willingly entering into a binding, two-way relationship with their God. So we reach the climax. On the 3rd day, the scene is absolutely terrifying. There's thunder, lightning, a thick cloud covering the mountain, and the sound of a trumpet that just keeps getting louder and louder. The whole mountain is smoking and shaking because God has descended on it in fire. And from inside all this awesome chaos, God speaks. The first 4 commandments lay the foundation. They define the vertical relationship, how the people are supposed to relate to God. It starts with total exclusivity, no other gods, period. They forbid making idols, making sure that worship is directed to the invisible Creator, not something they made. And they command reverence, both for God's name and for his special day of rest, the Sabbath. Okay, so once that foundation is set, the next 6 laws pivot to the horizontal relationship, how they have to treat each other. It kicks off with honoring parents, which is the bedrock of any stable society. Then come the big prohibitions that make community life possible at all. Don't murder, commit adultery, steal, or lie. And that last one is fascinating because it's unique. It deals with the heart, forbidding the greedy desires that actually lead to all the other bad actions. So, the most important point here is that these aren't just random rules. This is the constitution for that new kingdom of priests. It defines in very practical terms what it looks like to be a holy nation. The whole experience, though, is so overwhelming and frightening that the people back away and beg Moses, "You speak to us, but don't let God speak to us or we'll die." So just think about what we've seen. In these 5 short chapters, a complaining, disorganized mob is forged into a nation. They journey from being desperate for bread and water to standing at the foot of a holy mountain, where they receive the very words that will define their identity for thousands of years. This moral code became their foundation, which really leaves us to think about its enduring impact and to ask ourselves, what role does this ancient law have for us today?